And we're recording. Daniel O'Brien, thanks for being on Fitness and Consciousness.
How's it going? Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so I found out about you. I don't even know how I found out about you exactly, but I saw your Jiu-Jitsu videos, and you have this style that is like really, I think it seems to me it's like a really like pure form, like what it's supposed to be. And I think I see like some of these, I mean, I don't want to say they're not jujitsu guys. Maybe they're high rank in jujitsu, but maybe they have an aggressive style.
Yeah.
Or they're, where to me, jujitsu is more like kind of like jujitsu includes Aikido kind of things where you're not meeting.
It's all grappling, in its purest form. I think it's a martial arts, what it boils down to. And I think what people have kind of turned it into a lot is sport, and it sort of produces quicker results, but I don't think always the best results as far as martial artist goes. So then it starts catering more towards athletes, guys that are flexible, guys that are strong and explosive. Those traits play more into those things because, I mean, even if you look at judo now in the Olympics versus one of my mentors, I guess, is of course, Jigoro Kano, but his most famous student, Kuzuo Mifune.
Yeah.
And he was everything you see him do is just effortless. You can watch videos of it. He's an old guy throwing around these huge guys with what looks like little effort, or no effort. It almost looks like magic, and it looks like, Ueshiba, the founder of Aikido, and it's like all that stuff looks the same. It's very elegant. It's very flowy. There's definitely an invisible force going on, and if my instructor, we come from a Hicks and Gracie background. So that's where all that, all the talk about the invisible force and, it sounds all mystical when you hear about it because I think it is kind of hard to acquire something like that. But it also, I think it can be acquired by everybody. And ultimately it's what allows everybody to be able to do jiu-jitsu, not just the athlete. It should be appealing towards women, towards children. I used to teach a lot of kids classes, and I tell people the story of, I won the Pan Ams as a brown belt. Like there were Gracies in my division. It was an adult brown belt Pan Ams, before all these submission tournaments were going on. So there's basically two big gi tournaments, and that's the Pan Ams and the World Championships. And I believe that was in 2000. It was 2010 or 2011. So I can't remember. I'm not one of those guys that remembers the exact date I got my black belt or anything like that either. I'm constantly training and trying to get better, and that's it. If I didn't have a belt, it wouldn't really matter to me. But anyways, I won the Pan Ams, and I was what my instructor referred to as almost like a technique whore. I knew like thousands of techniques. I watched YouTube. I had an answer for everything. Anytime somebody was giving me trouble, I'd try to learn and find a technique to counter it. And it's like, ultimately, I don't think that's the right answer, and I'll explain that later. Let me get back on the subject. That's what I call basically anti-jiu-jitsu, and I've heard Hickson refer to anti-jiu-jitsu before. And it's just sort of jiu-jitsu that's meant to only counter jiu-jitsu. It's sort of, that's what kind of I think has made jiu-jitsu grow in the direction that it's gone. Anyways, I won the Pan Ams as this technique whore. I don't think I had a very good understanding of jiu-jitsu, especially compared to what I have now. And I just felt like everything was hard. I was like an athlete. I trained harder than everybody. I worked out hard. I was going to be unbeatable in that, facet of the competition. That was something I could control. But I'd also at the time, so I went through the Pan Ams and, I didn't submit everybody or anything all the way to the gold, but I did I won, and I remember thinking, my jiu-jitsu, I wasn't proud of my jiu-jitsu, the way it looked, like how hard it was. I got into martial arts. Like I originally started doing karate, okay? So I originally started doing karate, and I watched a lot of kung fu movies, grew up watching Dragon Ball Z and just all that kind of stuff, and you kind of have that mystical force behind it, and you see the old guys doing it. I had the pleasure of getting to roll with Carlos Machado, a coral belt, and he's pretty oldest Machado brother, but if you roll with him, I mean, he feels like a stone mountain, and he walks like a cripple, but then you grab him, no offense to you, Carlos. Carlos knows I love him if he listens to this, but I would roll with him, and it was just really inspirational to see him like barely moving and getting the job done. It was really efficient. Then I had the pleasure of getting to train with Rickson and having him do moves and explain moves on me, not actually getting to roll with him, but enough to where I could feel, what was right and what was wrong, if that kind of makes sense, and Rickson is real sort of, there's not a lot of gray area with him. It's like right or wrong,
Yeah.
And I didn't really understand the mystical force and all that much then, but just feeling it opened my eyes to it. And I used to teach kids class while I was winning the Pan Ams and stuff, so I knew all these techniques, but really I didn't feel like I showed what jiu-jitsu was. I feel like I won a jiu-jitsu competition using jiu-jitsu moves, but not actually doing jiu-jitsu. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, that's what I was talking about when I see your videos, and it's like almost like, okay, well, there's wrestlers that know all, shoulder locks too. So what's the difference between the jiu-jitsu guy doing a shoulder lock and the wrestler? And to me, it's like the wrestler, he's going to be like aggressive, powerful, explosive, and the jiu-jitsu guy can do that, but it's more like, it's the way of yielding. It's the gentle way. Of course,
Yeah, and then if we're using power and exploding and all that kind of stuff, I mean, we might as well be just wrestling. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But I also, don't let me discredit wrestlers. I do think there's invisible jiu-jitsu in some of the great wrestlers too.
Yeah.
I just call that invisible force that we're doing jiu-jitsu. We'll use that for a lack of a better term. That is jiu-jitsu to me. And it's a mastery of understanding your weight distribution, your leverage and balance. And I'll go into explaining that later better, but I wanted to get back on to sort of what turned me on to it. I was young when I won the Pan Ams. I was 23, 22, 23, 24. I don't even remember, somewhere like that. But I had short hair. So that was a while ago. Okay. Anyways, I remember training so hard, even in my kids' classes, doing like drills and stuff. I would wear like 2 weight vests and do all this stuff with the kids. Our drills were 30 minutes. I barely taught, I taught a lot, but my kids had a high dropout rate because my class was so hardcore. I did that class not just for the kids, but also for my training too, and it was anyways, it was a very surreal moment when I was jogging laps with no weight vest on with the kids, and I just fell on the mats because my spine, something locked up, right? And I just couldn't stand up. And to me then it was about how hard I trained was how good you were. And I think that's true to an extent, but all that hard training, I'd trained so much that I'd probably done more training in that amount of time than somebody had done in like 20 years. Even on a young body, that still takes a toll. And I remember my kids picking me up off the mats. I had a couple of those instances where, I was doing drills or something in a soccer field and the same thing happened. And it was because of all of my violent twists and turns during jiu-jitsu moves and hard training. And I was like, man, if I want to, I knew one of my goals was, I love jiu-jitsu. I love grappling. I want to be able to do this the rest of my life. When I had that moment of my kids like kind of picking me up off the floor, it was sort of, I can't do jiu-jitsu and train the way I'm training and be able to do it for the rest of my life. It's just, it was just those things didn't work hand in hand. I can't keep doing it like I did in the competition to win Pan Ams
Yeah.
That's not the jiu-jitsu I want to do. I want to be where Carlos is, many years later, being able to teach and enjoy jiu-jitsu, and maybe even, be able to do it, watching, hearing the stories of Elio doing it until his 90s and stuff,
Yeah.
and watching the videos of Mifune, how well and stuff he moved in his old age. And he wasn't twisting and folding himself around people. He was just being in the right place at the right time, having the right leverage and balance, and able to off balance his training partners and throw them or submit them, whatever it is. But so I really, and my instructor, luckily, like I said, he came from that Hickson background, and every time I would grapple, like I said, I was one of those people that he referred to as a technique whore. I had 1,000 techniques, and sometimes I had so many techniques that I would be in a position, I'm sure several people can relate to this, but you'd be in a position, it's like, which technique should I use? You almost can't decide because there's so many.
Yeah.
And you just kind of pick and choose and use a technique, or you have a predetermined plan of string of techniques. I think all of this is wrong. And if somebody foils the plan, you start getting frustrated or confused or losing, or, you choose the wrong move. It has a lot less to do with timing. I think the jiu-jitsu you see in competition, everybody's sort of forcing the timing. You know what I'm saying? It's sort of, if it makes sense, I used to do a lot more thinking when I grappled back then.
Yeah.
Now I do virtually zero thinking. I don't even think about the next move I'm in. I don't even think about the submission that I'm going to use. When I use jiu-jitsu, everything falls into the submission that they give me. Everything falls into the escape that they give me. I don't choose those things, and it's not predetermined before it happens, which is why I can constantly produce new content, new videos. It's very easy for me to do that because and it makes jiu-jitsu more fun when I'm grappling that way too, because it's always different. It's never the same. It's like art, it's specific to what my opponent gives me. It's effortless. It's easy. And I'm not saying that I understand this to 100%. It's pure form, but I want to try to get as close to as I can reach, in my lifetime, to be able to help others reach there, and to be able to, get as close to the pure form as possible. It's fun. It's fun to me. It's inspirational to others and my students. Most of my students aren't competitors. We're in Coleman, Alabama. We're in the chicken farming capital of the United States. So, it's like chicken farmers down here, Nobody's really cares about competing that much. Like, I'm not even a very active competitor. I'm the most active competitor where I train at,
Yeah.
And it's a bunch of, moms and dads training together, people who are interested in self-defense and a good workout, and they eventually, some of them will compete and stuff like that too, but they keep coming back to class because it's like a music class to them. It's like art. It's candy for the mind. They feel the magic when they get to grapple with me and some of my other black belts. And I even feel the magic coming back from some of my beginner level belts too now, much earlier. Like, they're way better. Some of the white belts and blue belts that I have now understand jiu-jitsu far more than I understood it when I won the Pan Ams as a brown belt.
Wow.
And to me, I feel like I'm doing that a service, we've had students stick with jiu-jitsu a lot longer, and it's not just the athletes don't just stick with it. It's like some of these guys are frail, I'm not going to name names, but some of them are frail. You got older, younger, a mix. Everybody wants to grapple with everybody. The girls want to grapple with the heavy guys, like, because they trust in jiu-jitsu and they believe in it. And I also see them consciously trying to use it in the class. Very low injury rate because nobody's like really we got a few guys that kind of go ham, but then you got but all those guys, that's going to be at every school. I still, I won't promote somebody if they don't know how to basically control their own emotions and pace in a grappling match. It has that. I'll have to see them using jiu-jitsu now. It's not just based on the competitions they win or different. We've actually had guys leave our school because I had one guy, he was a blue belt, and he would go around winning some of these competitions. But they were honestly little rinky-dink local competitions, and sometimes there'd be like nobody in his division, and he'd be like, hey, I got a gold medal, or he'd beat one guy, and he was an athlete, he was in shape, but he had a very low understanding of jiu-jitsu. And not to mention, he also was like, it's hard to promote somebody that's going to be one of those. It's like part of your character. You need that seal of improvement. You need that approval. I'll promote you when you're ready, and it's character based. We're a martial arts school, is what we are. We're not a jiu-jitsu school. We're a martial arts school. I promote people. I don't promote people if they're jerks. If they're not at least blue belts in life, you're not getting a blue belt. You have to be blue belt in life. You have to be a blue belt in jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I started jiu-jitsu about 20 years ago, and my teacher, he's 7th Dan in judo, like from the Kodokan. He's from Korea, but he was invited here in the 60s from the Indiana Judo Association because judo was getting more popular, and they wanted real, authentic teachers to come here. So that's why he moved to Indiana. And so I was learning, like, some of the stuff that we do looked like Aikido. So we're doing like the wrist throws and this kind of thing, and but also like all the ground grappling stuff. And it's kind of like the same thing. There was this guy who's very tough. He's beating people up, and he fails his, I think, brown belt test because he was like too aggressive. And it's like the teacher doesn't care if you can beat up everybody. If that was what it was, there'd be one black belt in the room.
No, you can't promote somebody based on. You want to promote somebody based on their skills in the art, not their skills in the art, not just how tough they can be. That's people are different toughness, and you can develop and polish toughness, and you can become more tough. But there's some people who are more toughness is like strength. You know what I'm saying? It's the same thing. It's like flexibility. I want to promote people based on their understanding of jiu-jitsu. And if you understand it, you'll be able to teach it. You'll be able to share it with others. You won't just be able to, how there's a lot of those guys who are world-class jiu-jitsu competitors, and their ability that they almost can't explain some of the things they do. Their ability to teach is just not very high. And it's because, a lot of that is more in their athletics, and maybe their body has an understanding of it, but I think it's sort of like studying, all those guys that play music, they eventually the ones that want to be really good, they eventually start studying music theory because they want to know how it all makes sense. Like, I want to make sense of why this is easier, why this way is easier. I want to make sense of all these things. I do a lot of all the jiu-jitsu guys that neglect stand-up. I mean, I just want to improve my understanding of the art, and that's it. And, getting back on one of my, the story of me becoming the technique whore, like I said, I couldn't even make up my mind on which move to use. So, eventually, I went to train with Hickson, and then we were at a Hickson seminar, and he basically reiterated a lot of the things that my instructor had already told me. He said I should always try to grapple like a 12-year-old girl with a flu. I remember as a brown belt, my instructor told me, and this is one of the reasons I won the Pan Ams. He said, as a purple belt, or he said, as a brown belt, there shouldn't be a purple belt out there that could pass your guard without you using your hands.
Wow.
So I was the kind of guy that took that to heart. I was like, all right, purple belts, like, let's go. Like, I'm going to get my guard good enough to where none of them can pass it without me using my hands. Train, every chance I got until that was a thing, till purple belts couldn't pass without me using my hands anymore. And, all that stuff was good. My instructors always steered me in the right direction. And I think that's important for an instructor. You want to be the guy that tries to allow your students to – you don't want to be the guy that just gives your students belts and anything like that. I've seen good instructors also do that too. I think it's better to and I'm not going to hold my students' hands every step of the way either. I don't want them to grapple the same way I grapple.
Yes.
I want them to use the knowledge that I have, but I want them to teach themselves, or I want to teach them how to teach themselves, if that makes sense.
Yes,
You know,
seems to me.
and then their jiu-jitsu can start to flourish a little bit more, instead of, like, I don't want you to just, maybe through learning my jiu-jitsu, that'll help you do that, but I don't want you to just do my jiu-jitsu, make the same decisions that I make everywhere. You know, you have your, ultimately, you know, whether it's playing a musical instrument or doing a martial art, it's an expression of yourself in its truest form. So if you can learn how to express yourself, express the things that you're feeling to make good decisions, to make good music, good sounding music, then you've got to trust your feelings, and you know, you've got to be able to use your body as the instrument to get those things out in response to what you're feeling against your opponent. And I think that's the best. You know, again, that's hard to explain through words. It's hard to explain through words. The Hickson seminar, again, it kind of like it. I went back and drilled a lot of the moves that he had showed, and it really opened my eyes to the effortlessness of it, because, you know, it was like Hickson was like one of those guys. I needed to hear it from my instructor. I needed to hear it from Carlos, but then it like didn't really register until I heard the same things coming from Hickson, who was like, you know, if there was a jiu-jitsu Bible, you know, if Hickson spoke, his letters would be in red, you know?
Yeah.
I mean, it was, to me, you know, I was like trusting in my instructors, and when they said something, I did it. So I took a lot of the stuff that Hickson said to heart, and my instructors and Carlos, and I started to submit to, you know, there doesn't need to be much effort in my jiu-jitsu. I'm using too much strength. I lost a lot when I started doing this in my training. But eventually my jiu-jitsu grew and it flourished, and it helped me understand to trust my feelings more. You know, I think that's people in jiu-jitsu end up doing, to become a technique whore, you have to search for the quick way out. Like, we always want a technique as an explanation to counter somebody else's decision. You know, it's like, if I do this here, then they make this adjustment. Well, what do I do next? Well, you know, if you've ever done jiu-jitsu before, the smallest adjustment can make the biggest difference. You know, some of those adjustments don't even have to be seen. They just have to be felt, you know. And one thing that's true in my jiu-jitsu is that when you touch somebody, you can feel where their weight is in their body. Like, if it's in their feet, their left foot, their right foot, the front of their left foot, the back of the right foot. You know, again, this isn't something that I'm thinking in my head. This is something I'm feeling through the rest of my body, like it's an antenna. And then that, following that feeling, following that weight, leads to the option, leads to the escape, leads to the submission. You start to learn to and then it starts to flow like water a lot more than, you know, wrestling, which is water kind of starts to flow and it hits something, then it backs up and it tries to go again. Or, you know, I say wrestling, but, you know, even this athletic jiu-jitsu, it's like, oh, this option didn't work, go for plan B. I like trying to make, when I go for plan A, I like for plan A to work. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it's like one of those things, and everything in my jiu-jitsu is not plan. It's like people that are waiting on plan B, when they try plan A, they try it so half-heartedly that, because they really just want plan B or plan C. You know, plan A was almost just a fake. You know, it was like to blow. This is what they really wanted. This wasn't even a good try at it. This is what they really wanted. And because they do that, now plan B is not that good either, because plan A wasn't even really that good.
Yeah.
In the jiu-jitsu that I do, everything feels like a plan A, if that makes sense. It's like I try a move when it needs to be. I only do moves when they need to be executed, is what it feels like. Otherwise, you know, and I'll do certain moves. If I catch myself trying to move at the wrong time or forcing something, I'll back up, or, you know, I'll give up the position as to not reward myself for using force. You know, I think sometimes too, we get satisfied when things just work. It gives yourself that pat on the back you just kind of keep doing things at the wrong time just because it worked for you. But just because it works through force and you're forcing it, you're basically, every time you do that, I feel like it's like when somebody's kid does something bad and they coddle them for doing something bad. It's like you are being okay with that mistake. And then it's sort of harder. It's harder to let your ego go when that happens. Like when the move don't work, you keep trying to make it work anyways, you know? And that's the wrong attitude to have in jiu-jitsu, because if that's your attitude, well, your students are going to feel that when they're grappling with you too. And you're going to fail to inspire people as much because it don't feel like magic. It feels like forceful. Like, you know, it feels, and to me, when it feels like that, students are like, okay, well, like I want to feel inhuman to my students. You know what I'm saying? I want them to grab me and it feel like, you know, and big and small and all these kinds of things. I see a lot of black belts that are really good world-class black belts, and they have trouble with new athletic people that come in just because they make these, like, you know, a new athletic person makes wild decisions sometimes. They don't know any jiu-jitsu, so they're very free in their mind. They're just trying to crush, smash, squeeze, whatever.
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, the run-of-the-mill plan A, B, C, D don't work well on them because they're not doing typical reactions, you know? And then you see a black belt maybe beat this new person, but they're having like a hard time, you know what I'm saying? Like a harder time than they should. Yeah. And then that person automatically doesn't take jiu-jitsu now because he felt like, well, you know, I give that black belt some trouble, so I'm good enough, you know? And they don't experience that art, that magic in it. It sort of feels more like a pissing contest. And that's not what it needs to feel like. I mean, I feel like you can inspire even the big person or the douchebag that comes into your gym with pure good jiu-jitsu because they feel something they can't explain. That's what they need to feel. They need to feel something they can't explain, and then they need to say, I want that. You know, because that's what I wanted from the beginning anyways. I wanted to feel something I couldn't explain, and I want to be able to, you know, I want to – it needs to feel acquirable. Like they don't need to feel that I'm using some sort of crazy strength or tenacity or that I have this willpower that's just special to me. That's not what they need to feel. It needs to feel like it's something they can't explain, but it's a skill like juggling that if they just practice it, they'll be able to do it too, you know. But too quickly when we're learning to juggle, do we all just want success early on? So everybody wants to start with 3 balls, when really what you should do is just start with 1 until you get that down, and then it's like nothing, and then you do 2, and then you get that down, and then it's like nothing, then 3's easy. So you're not just searching for that quick technique. A technique is like one of those steroid shots. It has you search for a quick answer. Like, let me ask myself what is wrong with my current technique instead of trying to search for a different technique to use to combo it with, you know?
Yeah, I like that.
Proficient strikers are like that too. If you notice, I mean, it's not like everything is careful and planned, and it'll be like proficient strikers throw less strikes. You know, it's not about the combinations so much. It's more about the timing and the understanding of range and distance and being able to put their weight into their strike where they're at. Like,
did you watch the UFC last night? So I didn't.
I didn't. I read about it. You know, we were at the beach, so I had to read about it. But
yeah, I was going to mention Lyoto Machida knocking out Vitor with that.
Oh, yeah. I'm a huge fan of Machida. You know, and I think he's a good example of, like, I mean, look at him. He's by far not the best athlete in the UFC.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. He's not the most flexible. He's just skillful, got good timing. He's not the strongest yet. He knocks people out because he's able to be precise with his weight into his strikes. It's more basic than that. And to me, the more basic you can get, the better your understanding of the basics, the more freedom you'll give yourself to. If you're my jujitsu is based on less things. So for instance, I'm not afraid to grab somebody's neck when they're mounted on me. They're mounted on me. I can reach up and grab their neck and not get armbarred. I can be inside somebody's guard and go for a headlock. And these things, I'm not worried about those kinds of things. But in a jiu-jitsu mindset, that would be people would call that crazy or stupid.
Or principles, it seems like.
But like if you understand jiu-jitsu and its foundation, that it's really just your mastery of balance, weight distribution, and leverage. Posture is related to all those things. With correct posture and with good connection, you can learn to break all the rules that people think in jiu-jitsu are actual rules. Like, you got to have your hands here. I can break just about any rule in jiu-jitsu. And, and it leads to a lot more freedom of thought too. You build a box around yourself, the more rules you have, because you have to operate inside those rules. The less rules you have, the more freedom you have, and that's the more freedom you have to see jiu-jitsu open up in different avenues that other people won't get to see, because I'm not afraid to be tapped in training. Those avenues open up a lot easier, and I'm able to discover and uncover a lot of new things. New things, maybe they might just be new to me. They might be new to everybody else, and then now, because I understand the basics a little bit, like I have a good feeling of like what's right and what's wrong. And sometimes grabbing somebody's neck when they have you mounted or inside their guard, going for a headlock, sometimes those things, I'll just go ahead and tell you, they don't feel wrong. It sort of goes into how you do it and when you do it. That's why I'm sure you've seen it from higher level guys. They'll be using their guard and they'll get put in a headlock from inside the guard. And it's like they're ripping and tearing their head out to have to get out and like bending their back and straining and all. And this will be a high level guy. It's happened to me before, but it also made me think, okay, I've got to spend more time here with white belts and find easier. Obviously, I'm doing something wrong on the bottom of the guard or to allow this to happen. And anyways, you sort of learn to break the rules over time. And I try when I'm grappling and stuff to make a point to break a lot of rules, because it shows not only does it make the person you're feel like, hey, well, I've got him. This guy's grabbing my throat from inside my guard. I should be able to armbar him.
Yeah.
And then when they can't do it, it's very mentally defeating, especially if you're not even moving. So when you grab their throat and you just makes a little adjustment in your hip that makes it impossible for them to do it, honestly. But they feel like they should do it anyways, because the way they were taught, if somebody grabs my neck, should be able, little things like that. It's just very mentally defeating for them. But it's also like with my students, it shows them it's like, sensei can break the rules here and be okay. Like, you know what I'm saying? So it just gives you more freedom. It allows you to express yourself more. So now it becomes the more to express yourself, I'm a very unique person. Everybody's unique. We don't all need to have the same rules, that we're building around each other. To truly express yourself, you're going to have to think outside the box. And sometimes you got to break the rules and be punished for it, like get armbarred from inside the guard, break the rules here and there. You got to break the rules to learn that they can be broken, You got to not be afraid to do those things. And I think as a jiu-jitsu practitioner for a long time, I was taught, don't put your hands here ever. Don't put this here. Like, this is a no-no. No, all this kind of stuff. When they get here, do this, and it's just sort of these absolutes. Only Siths deal in absolutes. I'm trying to be a Jedi,
Yeah.
And honestly, it just makes it more pure. And like I said, unfortunately, that's one of the things about jiu-jitsu. Like, I think I have a website, DanielO'BrienOnline.com, and it's got like a lot of my moves and things on there. And truthfully, without training with me or putting your hands on me, some of those things can be hard to get, you know, or putting your hands on somebody else that's similar, which is kind of hard to find right now, it seems like. But like a lot of those things have to be felt. You know, true jiu-jitsu has to be felt, not just explained through a video. So when I go and do seminars and stuff like this outside of the school, or, you know, my website benefits my students a lot, but it benefits more the people that I've had my hands on, because they can make sense of it a lot easier, you know. Unfortunately, you know, I hate that it's that way, but and I feel like, you know, in techniques, you know, when most people are teaching, they explain, all right, when they're here, do this, when they're here, do that. When I'm teaching techniques, I usually try to explain how they work and what's going on, and, you know, what my partner's feeling when I do this. You know, if he can't move here, I try to explain, you know, where exactly my weight is at to keep him from moving. I try to explain these things that will help. I am showing a technique, but I'm relaying the principles of jiu-jitsu through all the techniques too. So, you know, when you hear somebody that's like really good at explaining the details, it's a lot of times just because they understand where their weight needs to be when they're executing a technique. It's not like most of my classes that I teach, I literally make a plan for like 20 minutes before I teach them, you know?
Yeah.
And I can answer people's questions very easily, like as far as in technique videos and stuff like that, and probably come up with unique answers. And it may not even be a move that I've ever done before, but if I visit it for a second, I can really, because I understand jiu-jitsu, I can understand how this move needs to work, you know? So I feel like, you know, again, this is, every time I do jiu-jitsu, it feels like I'm going on an adventure because I have a freedom of thought. You know, I don't do jiu-jitsu to work out. I work out to work out. I do jiu-jitsu to be better at jiu-jitsu. And you've got to be better at jiu-jitsu, you have to learn to trust in your feelings when something feels right or wrong, and you have to learn to follow those feelings. And I think that's an important life lesson too. Like, people are a lot of times afraid to trust their feelings because it goes against what society says is right or wrong, you know, and really you just got to learn to be the best you. That's what you got to do here, you know, to inspire people. I'm not going to be able to be the best Hickson Gracie, you know.
Right.
I've got to learn to be the best me. And sometimes, you know, I like to quote Musashi a lot, but I remember there was a quote, and I wish I had my book with me, but I highlight a lot of the things he says. And I remember he was talking about swordsmen back in his day, and he was talking about how like a lot of the other swords clans, and I could really relate this to jiu-jitsu and other martial arts, you know, not just jiu-jitsu, but a lot of the other sword clans, they would, when they were trying to get new students and stuff, they would teach a technique. Basically, they really didn't even know how to sword fight, is what Musashi was saying. They understood zero on how to sword fight, but they knew a lot of sword fighting techniques.
Yeah.
And he talks about how what a beginner wants to see, like when a new person comes in your door, they don't want to watch you do a bridge and roll.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? They don't want to watch you do a side mount escape. They want to see how to flip somebody and armbar them. Or, you know what I'm saying? They want to see something like that. As a beginner, that's all you can kind of grasp, you know? So he said, basically, like these other swordsmen would show these flashy techniques, and then they'd get a lot of students. The Musashi, basically, he would try to relay everything through the principles. And it would be, so it was hard to be a student under him, not because, you know, it just probably wasn't as rewarding. You know, you don't get those quick rewards. I could teach a beginner on their first day how to do a flip armbar if they followed this step-by-step thing. but they could do it without actually knowing any jiu-jitsu. You know, it's just a technique. It's the principles, the underlying principles behind it. And I mean, you honestly need to be able to create that out of the air. You know, that's what's real. Not, you know, now they can just copy me. They're just following a recipe that they got out of a book. You know, there's no art behind that. Zero. And it's not beautiful. I don't think it's inspirational. If I can show somebody something a little bit more basic and let them feel it, what I do with beginners is I'll usually get them out there as an example, like say for escaping side mount or something. You know, I'll get them out there and I'll have them struggle in the beginning. I'll say, okay, try to escape, you know, and I'll put another white belt on top of them, or a really big guy or something like that. And then they'll move so hard they tire themselves out, and then I'll get out there and with the same guy that they just had trouble with, and like I'll get it up onto my side, I'll get out easily, not with a struggle, because if they see me struggle too, even if I still get out, there's that now you're teaching your students also in the back of their mind that struggling is okay, you know. So it just is not as beautiful. When they see you, though, do it without effort, they're like, oh, you know, I can do that too if he did it that easy. And then I'll get them back out there and I'll say, okay, make this adjustment in your posture. I'll try to push you over, you know, use your chest here, stretch your head there, you know, little things on something basic as far as getting up onto your side from side mount or escaping, and let them sort of feel and experience the magic of what feels right. They may not be able to do that, master it their first class, but at least they leave thinking, you know, this is a skill that I can master with some practice. And with practice, it'll become effortless. It won't be with practice and a little bit of explosion, I'll be able to get out. I don't want to think in that, because not everybody has a little bit of explosion to give. I've had 72-year-old students, you know, that want to come in to learn to defend themselves, or exploding. I've twisted and turned under people and pulled ribs out of my back. Like I said, when I was doing
I've done that too.
You know, and I hear all these jiu-jitsu guys, I'm too young to do. We're both too young to do that. You know what I'm saying? I want to be able to raise my kids. I want to be able to, you know, be the best husband possible. I want to be able to be there for all these life experiences. And that's not going to be very long if I continue to do jiu-jitsu the way that I did it. And unfortunately, I do think that is the way most people do jiu-jitsu. And I will also say, you know, one of the reasons that I compete, I hate competing, but I like to try to I like the fact that it kind of, I get to try to prove the effortless and efficient jiu-jitsu works in competition as well, you know?
Yes.
And I want to do that, but I don't want to just do that myself either. I want my students to do that. I want other people to start doing that, because I believe in the long road, that's what's going to be, I want that to be what jiu-jitsu turns into. You know, I don't want to see jiu-jitsu sort of de-evolve into this, basically judo, what judo is now in the Olympics. And unfortunately, that's what's happened, you know, in taekwondo, stuff like that, like all karate. There's good karate out there. I mean, look at Machida. But then you watch karate in the Olympics, and it looks like, I mean, honestly, anybody on Alabama football team could beat up any one of the guys that do karate in the Olympics, you know, because it's not real fighting anymore. They're playing tag based on these rules, and they're basically slap fighting, and it's stupid. And then it gives karate a bad rep.
Yeah.
And, I mean, how many times when I started taking karate, I mean, karate was like a laughing stock amongst most people. You know, it had its sort of heyday, and I believe there is really good karate. I mean, like I said, look at Machida. My instructor also, I was lucky. He was a multi-time national champion in karate, and it's Johnny Lee Smith. He was on a TV show, a WMAC Masters. I don't know if you ever remember that. It's a martial arts TV show. I used to live in New York and watch this show my instructor was on. And when we moved down here, I found out he was teaching. Well, he was originally a karate guy. And he went out to train with Hickson because he was doing a karate tournament out there. He heard this grappling master was out there, and it was when Hickson was teaching out of his garage. It was also when he was fighting in Pride and stuff.
Wow.
And eventually, you know, my instructor had his eyes open, and Hickson told him, he was like, you know, Johnny, my instructor, he was like, I feel like my whole life's basically been a lie. You know, luckily he was humble, and he was like, I feel like my training up until this point is nothing. He's like, no, is what Hickson told him. He said, all your training is good. You just need to learn this too, is what he told him. So my instructor, he's a world-class striker, world-class karate guy, old school too. And so he later became like a sparring partner for Hickson during his Valley Tudo tournaments and stuff. But, you know, luckily I had an instructor that was always looking to better himself in some sort of way. You know, it wasn't about like what martial art is better. It wasn't about like, you know, well, I'm winning all these karate tournaments. An easy decision that he could have made that a lot of these other karate guys made were, we don't need to do jiu-jitsu because jiu-jitsu, it's just two guys rolling around on the ground, and they sort of laugh at it back then. You know, I'm not going to do that stuff. Karate is king, all this kind of stuff. You know, my instructor was open-minded. There's open-minded. He wanted to be better at martial arts. And, you know, like I said, I think there is good karate out there. There's good in all martial arts. But when something gets popular, like karate did back in the day, Karate Kid, all that kind of stuff, that got popular, people saw it as a business opportunity to open up karate schools all over the place. So they'd kind of get belted quick, and they'd open karate schools. Now everybody's 7-year-old kid is a karate black belt, and I have to go to family reunions every time and they know I'm a black belt. They're like, oh, that's funny. Well, my kid's a 3rd-degree black belt and all this other stuff. You know, I mean, and they're talking to me, and I've heard this. I've had Pan Am champion purple belts that came before me. They were saying they'd go to family reunions, and they were like, what belt are you? And he's like, a purple belt. And then, you know, they'd be like, oh, my daughter's a black belt, you know, and just kind of nobody respects karate anymore because of how watered down it became, because there are more schools, 90%, 95%, 99% of karate schools out there are McDojos, you know. And it's a sad thing because people are going into these schools. It's no longer a martial art. It's an entertainment business. They're giving their kids a pat on the back, letting them break their board, whatever. And they don't really learn anything. And honestly, it's dangerous because it builds a lot of false confidence. You know, if you want your kid to be entertained, take them to the trampoline park or take them somewhere like that, you know. And then they go to school and they get beat up by some bully because they never really learned any skills anyways and no real value in protecting themselves. And now they don't believe in karate or themselves. Same thing with jiu-jitsu. You get a guy that jiu-jitsu, the more popular it has become, you get people being promoted a lot more quickly. You know, of course, people are getting better quickly too. It's sort of in that phase now where jiu-jitsu is still pretty new, you know, as far as other martial arts go. But I've had guys even that live around me. There were a lot of schools open up, guys with no credibility opening up jiu-jitsu schools because it was popular. And that was most of the jiu-jitsu scene in Alabama, honestly. And we would have to go to these schools and visit them. And a friendly visits, the instructors wouldn't grapple us. Then the students would grapple us, and we'd be friendly and everything. And the school would shut down later because the students realized that what they were doing had no credibility. You know, jiu-jitsu's like that in a sense that, you know, people are going to jiu-jitsu classes. And I do believe, you know, yes, you can use jiu-jitsu. If your jiu-jitsu is competition successful, obviously you'll be successful at defending yourself too, in a sense. But then what if a guy has buddies and goes to stomp your head on the ground? We had a purple belt from our school, this was back in the day, who basically had no interest in self-defense, and he was a steroided up dude. He ended up starting fights. We kicked him out. But I remember him starting a fight with some guy who was a Marine, and they were both really buff dudes. I mean, this guy ripped the sleeves off my gi before, you know. And but he didn't really have many he didn't have a very practical self-defense jiu-jitsu either. You know, he had a few good moves that he was all right at and very strengthy. That's sort of how jiu-jitsu was a little bit more when I started too at my school, because it was a little bit newer. You know, really our instructor was the only one that could do it actually with any sort of efficiency. The rest of us were just trying to beat each other, you know.
Yeah.
But anyways, this guy went and started a fight with some other buff Marine. And then I remember hearing a story about him like trying to wave him down. Like the guy basically knocked him on his butt. And then the guy, the jiu-jitsu guy was trying to wave him down into his guard, like telling him to get in his guard. And then the dude just stood over him, kicking him in the legs. And that's just downright embarrassing.
Yeah.
But also think, you know, my jiu-jitsu, I feel confident that I'm hard to be taken down by multiple people.
Mm-hmm.
There are classes that I do where I have 30 people in the class and I'll grapple all of them at the same time. You know, I might lose, I will lose, you know. I've grappled 10 before and won though. So I mean it's just the fact that I'm not afraid to put myself in that situation, and that I'm not going to be easy to vanquish there either. Now, if I used regular competition jiu-jitsu and I decided to pull guard, I'd be killed in a matter of seconds, you know?
Yeah.
And another thing was my jiu-jitsu changed a lot when, I adapted those principles to standing up. Like I think in jiu-jitsu, you know, again, I started off in karate, so I always had a self-defense sort of base jiu-jitsu. Like I'd started taking jiu-jitsu because I was getting taken down in the karate class by the jiu-jitsu guys, and I couldn't get back up. And so me and my two brothers, who are both black belts too, we decided, you know, we're going to take jiu-jitsu. I didn't want to take it at all in the beginning. Like I thought it, you know, looked kind of homosexual and like, I mean, for real, I did though. You know, I was like, I didn't want to grapple with another man and all that kind of stuff. And then my brother started taking it, and I was like, all right, I got to take it. I don't want to get beat up by my little brother, you know. So I started taking it, and I fell in love with it. But I'm trying to remember what kind of tangent I was trying to adapt all this stuff to stand up. Well, for a long time, my takedowns were successful, but I was very bent over. You know, like you see most jiu-jitsu guys, it was more wrestly, like I'd shoot double legs and all this kind of stuff. And I started to get good jiu-jitsu from, you know, this is post-Hickson seminar, post me thinking about efficiency and stuff too. But I was like, well, why can I be efficient on the ground and my jiu-jitsu feel magical on the ground? But then when I go to do stand-up, it feels like a pissing contest again. You know what I'm saying? It feels like a dogfight.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, let me start adjusting. You know, I started looking towards some of my mentors, you know, Mifune, and learning, you know, listening to Masashi, learning about like no stance and stuff like this, and trying to just really adapt the same principles that I learned on the ground into standing. Like, why can't those things feel the same? So then I started to pay attention to where my partner's weight was from standing. My posture started to become more upright, because I don't know if you've tried to stand with your back bent, but if you stand like that for too long, your back's already going to get tired. You know what I'm saying? You get tired from just standing there. So I just stand up like I would wait in line at Six Flags or Starbucks, like with regular posture, like I could stand there all day.
Yeah.
I can shift my weight a lot easier from that stance. So why are jiu-jitsu guys doing that? And I'll tell you why. Because in jiu-jitsu, first of all, in early stages of jiu-jitsu, it's a lot easier to learn to do a double leg or a single leg to take somebody down than it is to do tomonage or, you know, some sort of hip throw or anything like that. You know, it's just a lot easier to learn those things earlier on. So short-term success, it's like I can have competition success early on. You see everybody else doing it too, and that's another thing. You see everybody else doing it. And what is the number two main takedowns that people use in competition against you? Double legs and single legs. So then we all start bending over to protect our legs. So but that bent over posture, I mean, how many times have you seen that bent over posture work well in the UFC for striking?
In the face.
Zero, you know, so it has no application whatsoever to striking. So all these jiu-jitsu guys, or a lot of them that go into the UFC, end up having a very low success rate because they can't strike from the same postures that they do takedowns with. You know, so there's just no beauty in that. There might be beauty on the ground when they get there, but there's no beauty beforehand, you know. And I think it's more about, let's learn how we can use our skills on the ground to adapt them to where we can. To me, fighting is fighting. You know, we talked about jiu-jitsu earlier, but striking somebody is, like I said, is based upon the same principles. So if you can learn how to grapple, you should be able to learn how to strike efficiently too. You should be able to learn how to do takedowns efficiently. Your grappling shouldn't be efficient, and then your striking be forceful and, overly aggressive, just combos, whatever you want to say. But just for me, it's ugly. It's inefficient. Nobody can do that. Not everybody can do that. Only athletes. So let's as a martial artist, let's try to purify all those things. How my striking stance should look similar to my takedown stance. My takedown stance and the straightness of my back should look similar in the way that I pass the guard, or even the way that I escape side mount. All of that should look and sort of feel related. And I'm good at one thing. I'm good at on the ground. I'm good at those principles. So how can I use those principles that I'm good at into striking, into takedowns? Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense.
The ground is I think is good training wheels for that, because, there's low injury rate when you're on the ground, as far as you're not falling real big, and we're all scared to fall and stuff like that. But also, in good jiu-jitsu, you have to be good at armbar escapes. You got to be putting a lot of arm bars, So you're not just going to be good at armbar escapes naturally. Right. Somebody's going to catch you. You have to be put in a lot of arm bars. To be good at takedowns, you have to do a lot of takedowns. You have to fall a lot. You have to be thrown a lot. You have to feel what it feels like to do those things so that you can learn the efficient ways of doing those things. But by taking that bent over stance, we're taking that because we're trying to avoid everything instead of trying to be in there, if it makes sense. Avoiding things is a skill too, like protecting your arm and hiding your arm. But like I said, when you learn to break the rules, you give your body a lot more freedom of movement. I feel confident with my ability to defend takedowns when somebody gets behind me, as much so as I feel confident when they're in front of me. My mental state doesn't change during those things. And, most people's mental state goes down a lot when the guy gets behind him. You start kind of getting nervous and scared and sort of like ready to fall. I'm still trying to take this guy down and submit him when he's back behind me. Same goal, same end goal. It's all, people think of jiu-jitsu as positions: side mount, guard, bottom side mount, bottom mount, back control, knee mount. And it's like you have to earn your black belt in each one of those positions because they're all different. To me, they all feel the same. Like when I have somebody on my back, and they have my back, they're going for chokes, it feels the same as if I'm getting them in an arm bar, because it's based off connections and weight, and my mental state should be the same also. Because to learn to do real good jiu-jitsu and to learn to express yourself, you have to learn to get comfortable. You have to learn to relax. When you relax, you can really be in tune with your feelings. When you're in tune with those feelings from even bad positions, you're able to feel all the little mistakes that your partner makes, all the little room that he gives you. So you're not just planning, okay, I got to go, I got to escape. It's more, it just sort of presents itself. You feel the openings, you feel where it's loose. You feel where it gets tighter. You feel all those movements, and you have to be relaxed to feel those things. And that's one of the things I've understood as a higher belt. I used to try to have posture, but I tried to have it really hard. Be tense, almost over posture, when really you kind of learn. I had to learn posture that way, because I was doing bent back, but I had to learn posture that way. But eventually I learned it was like playing a guitar note. Like if you don't press the guitar note hard enough and you try to strum it, no sound's going to come out. If you press it too hard, it actually, and good guitar players are going to tell you that it sounds different. It sounds like crap. Like it can make the string sound like crap. But not only that, it also, the rest of your hand can't move very well because you're squeezing this note so hard. So you got to learn to press it just right. And that's a skill that you develop from doing it over and over again. So same thing with posture. If I learned that this posture shuts him down, an overly exaggerated posture, but I don't have to go that far. Really, if I just posture a little bit, it'll shut him down, and the rest of my body's relaxed and easy to move. It's adaptable. Jiu-Jitsu, your body needs to be a natural, a straight-up stance is more adaptable than a bent-over stance. You see all these judo guys coming in and embarrassing the jiu-jitsu guys that are bent over with throws because they know how to deal with those kinds of guys, Yeah. And to me, they're honestly, to be good at jiu-jitsu and to be good at takedowns, good defense, you're not avoiding something. I'm not being bent over to shut down the double leg. You honestly, to be able to defend everything, because I can't defend my head and neck very good when I'm bent over. I can't defend it from strikes. I can't defend it from being grabbed. When I'm straight up, I'm open for the double leg. I'm also open for my head being grabbed a little bit. You're sort of good defense. You're kind of in the middle of all that. You're open for everything. You're open for everything, but it's so when your partner makes a move, you can make a tiny adjustment and then you're not open for it. And then you go back. It's like dodging a punch. All right. So when you think about Anderson Silva, when he got knocked out by Chris Weidman, he kept fading back, in which, he's an expert dodger. I'm not by any means saying that I'm an expert dodger. I'm just making a comparison. But I know that when you dodge a punch, I'm always taught to, when you dodge, you come back to the middle. You want to have your head somewhere in the middle. And then when you dodge, you want to stay close to the punch. And then you don't hang out on one side and fight from there. You go back to the middle and you fight. So you get used to bringing your head back to the middle so you can adjust to things that come from other sides. That's what good dodgers do.
Right.
Anderson Silva leaned back, and then he had nowhere to go. Like, he couldn't move. So then the second punch hit him. The second punch hit him, and it knocked him out. My stance, I want my stance to be good enough to defend against a double leg. I want it to be good enough to defend against getting my head grabbed. And I may have to make adjustments during the movements with my hip, small adjustments to be able to shut those things down. Small movements to dodge, small movements to adjust to my opponent's reactions. So really, you just shut it down when it needs to be shut down, if that makes sense. In the bent over stance, I'm trying to shut it down all the time. And that's correct in the formula that most jiu-jitsu guys are only good at double legs and single legs, and that's what they're going to go for. That's 90% of the takedowns, 95. So, like, it makes sense to try to shut those things down by being in a stance that's like that, because it's more quick success. It's easier success. But I can tell you I'm more successful now in my takedowns, and people, when they grab me, they get a sense of uncomfortability because they feel that I don't feel like I'm in danger when I should be in danger. Guys posting on my Facebook or whatever, I just double leg that dude if he stood straight up like that. I've trained with world-class wrestlers, and the ones that have had their hands on me, like, can't believe that I'm defending from that stance, but it makes sense to them when they do too. They're like, oh, I feel it. Like, his hips feel strong. He's making an adjustment from here. Like, they like it, It's different, but it's honestly easier. My adjustments are smaller. I don't have to make these big explosive adjustments like and from bent over, I'm going to make an example. I know you can't really see it, but like when you're bent over, okay, you can't, your hip's so far back that to bring it forward, it's a huge movement. When I'm standing straight up though, if I'm standing natural, and when my hip's so far back, I can't even adjust it back any further. So really, you kind of limit yourself. If I'm standing straight up, I can move my hip forward. I can move it back when it needs to be moved. I can move it to the left and to the right. So your hip is a lot more three-dimensional there.
Yeah.
And it's harder to learn. I got double-legged a lot when I first started doing it. A lot, That's true. But then I got to where I could put a blindfold on, and it was super hard for guys to double-leg me then. And to me, I can trust in that a lot more. I can trust in those things, and everything sort of it teaches me to be more good in the instant that things happen. and I'm way less caught off guard because I'm reacting in that instant. I'm reacting to their movement rather than waiting on what I think they're going to do, because we're all being bent over because we know our opponents have good double legs and single legs, you know?
Right.
So we're all waiting on that. Well, what if they do something else? What if they're a judo master and I don't know, you know? Then I'm going to be thrown very easily, you know?
Yeah.
And like I said, you'll be caught off guard and you'll be caught by surprise. And in the moment of that surprise too, you're vulnerable to submission. You've got to be comfortable in those instances. The moment people make contact and actually commit to go for something, you've got to be relaxed and adaptable and ready to adjust, you know? That's what martial arts is. That's what a good striker does. They're adaptable. They're able to see what their opponent gives them and adapt to it and make a strike happen or see an opening. You know, there has to be a relaxed mindset to do that. Not this tense dogfight mindset that a lot of people get. You know, I like getting in dogfights sometimes, or I used to. You know, we're men. We like getting in those alpha male contests. But to me, now that's not really a place for jiu-jitsu, you know. I don't think there's a place for that in jiu-jitsu if you want your jiu-jitsu to be good. I think if you want to be successful in competition, it's okay, you know. And if you want to be good at using jiu-jitsu moves to gain victories and edges, that's okay, you know. And if you enjoy coming to class and getting in those dogfight pissing contests, that enjoyment should be there for you too. But also, you should be that enjoyment shouldn't get you promoted to black belt, though. You know, your black belt's going to be based on your jiu-jitsu. Like, what happens when we get this meaner, bigger guy on top of you, you know, in your weak positions? What are you going to do? You know, what are you going to do when the guy's actually trying to kill you? You know, beginners fight like they're trying to kill something.
Yeah.
And I want my jiu-jitsu to be good at dealing with that. I don't know what this guy's going to do, but I want my body to adapt and adjust to it, because there's no way you can tell what somebody's going to do. You know, and, you know, I do think it gets even deeper than that. I do think you can start with good posture and good knowledge of jiu-jitsu and good martial arts training. You can almost feel it without even touching the guy. It's like a feeling in the air. It's a feeling in your weight, like a grounded feeling. It's something that's hard to explain. One of the things that Hickson, I heard a long time ago say, my instructor told me, was, you know, I believe he related it to jiu-jitsu or martial arts, but he said martial arts or jiu-jitsu is a mastery of the mental, the physical, and the spiritual. So it's like, we all don't think about that spiritual side of it, but that spiritual side of it it's that invisible side. It's that part that's hard to explain. It's the part that allows you to express yourself. The mental and the physical is like mental is the studying of the techniques. And of course, you're going to go through trials and tribulations of, you know, my jiu-jitsu sucks, my jiu-jitsu's awesome, my jiu-jitsu's this and that. Learning to control your ego, all that is really important. The physical being, you know, obviously it's a lot more physical early on because you know less, and I think the sooner you can kind of start to incorporate the spiritual side of it, the ability to trust in and to express your own feelings and be yourself, like that side of it. And it's a part that's hard to explain, that you can't explain, that must be felt in a sense. And it comes through, you know, on your journey to black belt, a lot of self-reflection. I think you honestly have to feel somebody do it. I was lucky enough to get to feel Hickson, to get to feel Carlos, to get to feel some of those other guys. But we have YouTube now too. We can see it. But a lot of times, you know, you see those old judo guys or the old Aikido guys throwing guys around. It's a lot easier to say, oh, well, that's just fake. The other guy's letting him throw him. Or, you know, it's just a lot easier to say that. It's a lot easier for us to explain that. But I do honestly believe there's a lot of spiritual side behind it. And that's really what I try to I try to incorporate a lot now. And the more I pay attention to the spiritual side of it, the more that it helps my life outside of jiu-jitsu. Like, it helps me become a better friend, a better husband, a better father, soon to be, hopefully. But it translates into the other areas of my life. It makes me want to be a better person. And you hear about all that in like Musashi, his writings, and some of the other guys' writings. You know, all these masters, when they, right before they die, they kind of almost seem like way more peaceable, not wanting to get in fights and stuff.
Yeah.
At the ends of their lives than they were in the beginning. Musashi killed his first guy when he was 13 years old.
Yeah.
And then basically was a war hero, battle hero, killed hundreds of people. And when he kind of got in his 40s to 60s, he started like, I mean, he could still fight and everything, of course, but, you know, he started like, instead of killing people, he was like teaching them lessons. He was also way more into the mindset of, you know, a lot of the things that the way he let his ego go. You know, 20 years of my life, I lived it wrong, trying to kill people and using this kind of stuff. Like, when I could have saved them. I could have been a positive influence on them. I could have, you know, but I can be a positive influence now. And then he died, I think, in his like 50s or 60s or something. He died kind of early, getting sick. But anyways, but, you know, unfortunately, like, a lot of people don't figure that out until the ends of their lives, you know. And, you know, a lot of these old people, I think, you know, I say old people, elderly folks. I know a lot of good, wise, elderly folks, you know, and a lot of people that are, you know, black belts in life. But I know a lot of elderly folks that are like set in their ways. Like, when they get a certain age, you know, it's like some of the things they may do are wrong, but they're so set in their ways, they'll never change, you know. And it's because they've been doing those things for their whole life. Like, when I go to teach jiu-jitsu to a black belt or a higher level belt, and maybe they've had competition success, and I'm rolling with them or whatever, they'll make excuses for their jiu-jitsu, because instead of like sort of accepting that there's something that they don't know, or a way that they're doing something wrong, they'll just sort of justify in their head that I'm a freak of nature or something like this, and then that I'm special. And really, they're so set in their ways that they can't change. So it's easier for me to change a white belt, a blue belt's mind, a purple belt's mind, than it is a black belt's mind. I have experienced changing black belt's minds, and it's awesome, because those guys are willing to let their ego go. I want to be that Musashi. If I've been living a lie my whole life, when I get older, I want to be able to let that go, learn from that, use that as mistakes, and make me a better person. And you have to do that in jiu-jitsu, you know, by getting armbarred a lot. You have to make mistakes to learn and grow from them. A lot of those older people are so afraid, a lot of them, you know, not all of them. I'm just using that as an example. They're afraid of making mistakes or doing something different, you know, because the same recipes worked for them the whole time. You know, when a smoker's been smoking longer, it's harder to quit. When all of those kinds of things, you know, it's just, to me, you got to be willing to change. Martial arts teaches that. It humbles us to like learn, you know, our stance has adaptability, but our lives should have adaptability. We should be willing to say, hey, I'm being a crappy husband here. Let me try. I do a lot of meditating and breathing for, you know, for the spiritual side of jiu-jitsu. I feel like the better person that I become, I actually become better at jiu-jitsu too. It's weird how that works, but it does. Yeah. And Musashi, and if you listen to Mifune and stuff in some of his books, he talks about like you basically can't reach a high level in martial arts without being a good person. Yeah. There's just no way to do it, because you have to be humble truly at some point to do that. And, you know, I'm not saying I don't have an ego. I still do. But I think our goal is to try to rid ourselves of that as much. And I do things that I think are good for my life, like meditating and breathing every morning, so I can reflect on myself on how I can not just be better at jiu-jitsu, but how I can be better, what I did in my yesterdays that could have been done better. I think we all try to be our best You know, we all want to be good, so we do techniques really fast and we don't pay attention to the details. But really, that's because we all we want to be told that we're the next prodigy and stuff, or like that you're God's gift to mankind. When really, I think we can all be these unbelievable people, unbelievable versions of ourselves, unbelievable jiu-jitsu practitioners, if we just take our focus on not trying to be better than this guy or be the prodigy, but just trying to be a little better every day. Like, that's it. You don't have to try to be good. Just try to be better every day, because you might suck. But if you try to be better every day and that's it, eventually you're going to be better. You know, you're going to be awesome. You're going to appear like God's gift to martial arts or jiu-jitsu or whatever it is, or, you know, you'll be a better husband if you try to be a better one every day. You know, not just talking about it, or, you know, you have to do things that will kind of put those, see your life where you want it to be in the future, and try to put things into perspective to where that's what you want to be when you get older. You know, I want to be like Pai Mei off of Kill Bill. I want to be training martial arts when I'm old, but I want to be like, not just that old guy that does martial arts. I want to be the guy that's like, oh man, it's grappling. Carlos told me one time when I was doing takedowns with him, he's like, man, grappling you is like grappling a ghost. And like, to me, that was awesome. You know, I was like, that's what I mean, not because it strokes my ego or anything, but because like, it's just inspirational. I think, you know, it's like, that's what I want when I'm older. I want to be the guy that's like, you know, I do have a gift, I guess, as far as learning jiu-jitsu, and that I was able to have good mentors and a good teacher before me to kind of like steer me on the right path and to learn this stuff at an earlier age, which I feel like a lot of the jiu-jitsu practitioners don't learn till later. Maybe I've been blessed to have all that stuff, but I think everybody can acquire it. And I want to inspire everybody to know that, you know, I didn't once believe that you could do anything you wanted to do, or that you could be anything you wanted to be. I didn't think that, you know. I do honestly think that now. I do think that now. I think with the right mindset, and if you truly want to believe it, if you have passion, if passion drives you, if you have an interest in it, if it's something's fun to you and it's something you want to, like, it's all in your mindset is what holds you back. So with practice, with goals, with all that kind of stuff, you can be anything you want to be. You know, and the path may be harder for some other people, but if you stay on the path and you have a passion for it, you can be. And that includes a better husband, a better friend, a better father, a better jiu-jitsu practitioner. You want to be an astronaut, you know, you want to be an NBA player. Like, all those things are possible, and it's with a mindset, you know, and it's a skill set. All those things are skills that will have to be developed. And, you know, I used to not believe that. I used to think that people just had a natural knack for things, and you had to stick to what your knacks were. Some people don't like their knacks, you know. And I'm honestly a believer in, you're going to be the best at what you want to be, not at what you are good at, you know. You have the most potential in what you want to do and what you want to be and what you feel is right than something that you're just naturally good at. I feel, because you're gonna eventually hate yourself on down the road, or hate these decisions you made, or, you know, or you're gonna have feelings of regret. You're not gonna be able to take it as far because you just don't have that passion driving you, that you have your passion driving this other thing. You know, whatever your passion is driving, that's what you need to pursue. That's, you know, what teaching kind of did for me. Teaching and jiu-jitsu, like, I felt a passion for it. And that's, you know, I'm one of those guys that had a passion for something, and I was determined, and, you know, and I just tried to do a better job every day. And then it kind of turned out to this, and I will continue. If I had 0 students tomorrow, I give my students a speech. I was like, none of you guys train with me. You know where I would be? And they raise their hand and are like, you'd still be training. I was like, you're exactly right. Like, I could have 0 students, but because I have such a passion for martial arts, that I will find a way to train. and I want to be better at it. It's just part of my life. It's part of what makes me who I am. It's done so much for me. And I feel like it makes me a better person. So I will be there regardless. I'm blessed to have a bunch of students and all these other guys I can influence like that. Just trying to do a better job, all those other things fall into place. I think a lot of people try to open up schools and stuff early on. Like, I didn't even want to open up a school when I started teaching. Like, it sort of got passed on to me really quick, and I didn't even think I was ready for it. Mm-hmm. But, I just wanted to be better at what I did. And I started off not having many students, and now our mats are full. And I don't try to necessarily, I just try to do a better job. And all that stuff happens. People think, oh, well, I'm a black belt. I'm going to get my black belt real quick. I'm going to open up a school. I'm going to make some money, blah, blah, blah. This is going to be my life. That's not, those kind of people don't need to open up schools.
Right.
The kind of people that open up schools need to be the ones that, I want to be better at jiu-jitsu. I love jiu-jitsu. I want to be better at jiu-jitsu. And then on down the road, you kind of figure out, you're helping people on your jiu-jitsu journey. You're helping other students, and you're like, man, helping people feels good. Maybe I'll open up my school. But your driving force behind an instructor needs to be the art, and your understanding of the art and how you can use that as a tool to influence and impact other people's lives. All that stuff, and making money, all that stuff comes with just doing a better job. Right. That'll come. People try to live the dream too fast, let the dream happen. And that's sort of what I've began to do. And now my student base, our school is never made any less money or had hard times. When I first started, we had about, and we're training a little chicken farm in Capital, but I remember we had like 50 students total in like all our classes, which wasn't too many. Some of those classes would be empty or have one person in it at a time. But I remember like 17 of those students were paying when I took over the school. Okay, and we have a standalone school, so our school was losing money. Several months I made $0, but I knew I was going to be training and stuff regardless. And I took it over at an early age. I'm trying to remember. I've been teaching for over a decade now, or for a decade. So, I mean, maybe 8 years ago. But now our mats are full, Our mats are full. And it's not just from the successes in the competition. It's because, like, I care about doing a good job. I care about my students. I care about their jiu-jitsu. I want what's best for them. I want them to take it down avenues that I haven't explored yet. Again, remember, I talked about how jiu-jitsu is an expression of yourself. Well, I'll forever be and about getting out of the box, but I'll forever be trapped in the box of myself. You're going to think differently than I could ever think. So if I could show you jiu-jitsu the way that I know jiu-jitsu, if I gave that to you, you would explore so many things that I couldn't find on my own. Just because you're a different human being. And to me, that's what's awesome, That is what's awesome about jiu-jitsu. That's what's awesome about art. It stimulates that side of our brain. And then that understanding, though, like I said, it can help you learn other skills. It can help you learn, how to play the guitar, how to be a better husband, all the other things that I've repeated in myself. But to me, that's the real gift that jiu-jitsu has given me. It's given me that confidence and ability to know that if there's something I want to do, I can follow my passion and do that. If I put enough time and dedication into it, I can do that. I can be that. I can be the person I want to be on down the road. Jiu-jitsu did that for me.
Yeah, when I was wanting to ask, because I teach a class also, and I'm not a high-level instructor. I don't try to present myself as something that I'm not. I don't even take money for the class. I say there's a $10 donation, and it goes to the school. I teach strength and conditioning classes for kids and adults at a wilderness survival school. And I teach a jiu-jitsu class there on Wednesday nights, and I don't take a dime for it. The money, whatever anybody gives just goes to the school. And
Yeah.
but when I've probably taught about as many classes as I've taken, because for some reason I've always like been working when, classes, when I can go and learn. And I was wanting to ask you, like, so I started like 20 years ago, and I started teaching like 30 minutes after my first class. I went right to my buddy's house, who I was doing like kind of like kickboxing stuff with. I went right to his house after my first class, and I was like, dude, check it out. I'm showing him triangles. And so I've always tried to keep up in that way.
Yeah.
But when I'm training with somebody, even if they're new, and it's like they're I'm showing them stuff, but it's like they're winning most of the time. So I'm not really trying to beat them. And I try to tell people before the class, if like new people come, I was like, I don't have any trophies to pass out. I'll show you everything I know. And when, so if I'm grappling with, like I just had one of my students, she went to her she's a second dan in karate, but she's been training with me in jiu-jitsu for about a year, about once a week for a year. And she went to her first competition and won. She won against one female. It was like one of those things. And then she went up against a guy. She did well against him, but he ended up getting her in a triangle. But when I'm against people, what I'm getting at is, I could submit her pretty quickly, but I don't. If you're like looking at it, it's looking like she's beating me up almost all the time. I'm getting some nice reversals, but then she gets me back into something else. And then like she'll, I'll do this with anybody, guys too, or if I'm training with younger people, whoever, and she's getting like close to a choke or something, and then I'll be like, okay, adjust it this way, and then let her get it. Then she like loosens up, and I'm like, okay, we'll just fight from here, keep it there. But when you're going against people that are new, you could beat them up very easily. Are you letting them? Like, what does that? I
like to let them work. I also like to let them experience the magic of jiu-jitsu. My instructor told me one thing that stuck with me for a long time, and it was, now keep in mind, my instructor got black belt level, and all he had was like white belts to train with,
Mm-hmm.
and that's the majority of what I have to train with where I'm at. Like as far as like, I get a lot of training with beginners. No really high level black belts around where I'm at, aside from the black belts that we have. But anyways, my instructor always told me that say I'm a black belt, if you're training with a white belt, you train like a white belt, because how much benefit are they going to get from a match where I just try to see how quickly I can tap them?
Exactly. Yeah, I want to teach people how to win, so I'm losing the whole time.
They really I want them to get better in the match. I want my duty as a higher belt, I want to improve. And not only that, but I'm not going to improve my understanding of jiu-jitsu in that match either, trying to beat them very quick. That's not going to help me.
Yeah.
Now, with a white belt, though, like I said, I may headlock them from inside the guard. I'm breaking a rule. Break the rules with the white belts, because white belts are going to try to do that against them, and they'll learn good, valuable defensive concepts on their own. They'll almost teach themselves. And at the same time, I'll get to explore new options, like, my arm's open from here, or I can go to this from there. It makes the match feel more like an adventure. It's definitely way more fun, to explore those new avenues. And I can't tell you how many black belts. I've competed a lot, and I can't tell you how many black belts that I've felt. And I think most of the people are like this in competition, even the best competitors. They spend so much time on being in the guard and guard passing. Right now, too, it's also foot locks, but you could use it for anything. But I would say for the old school guys, it was all about like how good your guard passing was and how good your guard was, for the majority. So then a lot of the guys that I would go up against, their guard would be unbelievable, like black belt level. But when I got around their guard, they felt like worse than our blue belts. And these would be high-level world champion black belts that I'm talking about. I'm not going to name names, but this happened to me multiple times. I'd get past their guard, and I'd be like, this guy feels like a blue belt here. Whereas in my case, though, I want to feel like a black belt when somebody comes past my guard. I like making somebody feel helpless when they're on top of me in side mount. You know, how disheartening is that?
Yeah.
And at the same time, you know, like I said, I think it just good defense can teach you a lot of things in jiu-jitsu. You know, because to obtain good defense, you have to be in a lot of bad positions, and you got to learn to get comfortable in those positions, and then getting comfortable in good positions is easy after that. But a lot of these world champion black belts and all this other kind of stuff, they try so hard to avoid being put in side mount that they're never there. But then when they get there, they're done, you know. They're done. One of the examples that I can think of that was really good as far as, I don't know if you ever remember a match with Crone Gracie and Leandro Lowe. It was like in a gi. I was there. It was for the World Championships one year. But I remember it was when Leandro Lowe, this was in the absolute. No, maybe it was in their weight class because Leandro was smaller then. But this was when Leandro was just coming on the scene and, like, stomping people. Like, I mean, but I remember Crone had a match with Leandro Lowe, and one of the things was, and you can relate this to a lot of the guys with good technique, they might be getting beat the whole match. Like, Crone was getting beat like 10-0, okay? And there was like 30 seconds left, and Crone, you know, he basically swept him, took his back, or I think swept him, mounted him, took his back, so he got up in points and then choked him, all within like the last 30 seconds. And now, if you think about that, that's happened with Crone on numerous occasions. It happened with Gary Tonin. I think Gary Tonin was beating him.
Yeah.
And then he basically, you know, he's going to lose the match, you know, and then he ends up submitting the guy later on. I've seen it happen with Hodger. He was going to lose the match in one of his weight classes against trying to remember his name. I remember the guy took his back, and anyways, he was down like 4 points. And then like a minute left, Hodger sweeps him, mounts him, I think goes for a choke and then arm bars him or something like that, you know. So, I mean, it was like with those guys, you know, the match ain't over till it's over is what I'm trying to say, you know. Like, the opportunity may not present themselves. And a lot of, in my experience too, most black belts, the easiest way to catch a black belt, in my opinion, is to make them feel comfortable. Like, they're hard to catch inside your guard when they're passing because they're trying to basically be extra careful. They'll run from danger when they feel it, and they'll, you know, I mean, it's like trying to catch a fish that's hard to catch. The best way to catch a fish like that is to give them some bait, to give them something. I tap more black belts when they have me inside mount. And one of these world champions that I trained with, he was much heavier than me. He came and visited me one time, and I knew I was better than him by grappling him. I knew I was better. I knew my jiu-jitsu was better than him. But we'd set these timers for 6 minutes. He was a big, strong guy. He was like a champion Greco-Roman wrestler. He was 50 pounds heavier than me. I knew I was better than him, and I would always, by the end of the 6 minutes, I would kind of like get an edge on him, but I wouldn't ever tap him. And I was like, why can I tap him? And he'd rest for like 6 and then go again because he was going hard the whole time. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to let him get – I did feel that if I got him in side mount, he felt like a blue belt. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to let him get side mount this match, start the match off with side mount. I tapped him in like 1 to 2 minutes. I tapped him 3 times in the 6 minutes because I was giving up positions because he would get comfortable. To me, I've played Guitar Hero. I don't know if you've ever played that game.
Yeah,
but
wow.
You know how you got that meter and it's like when it's in the green, you're all good, you know, and it goes from green to red and you know you're going to fail in the red. Well, a black belt, when they feel that danger, when that meter goes in the red, when they're inside mount, they go and like all out protect, right? When they're in the guard, they're kind of in the yellow, they're kind of like protecting but when they got me inside mount, they're in the green. They're comfortable. Well, then I go from them being in the green, you know, the best times to fail on Guitar Hero or when that nasty solo comes up, you come from being in the green to like it just drops you down because so many notes came by surprise. Like they have me inside mount. They go from feeling comfortable, their guard is let down, they're committing, they're attacking. When they're attacking me, they're more open. It's just like a counter punch. It's like a
Are you doing like so they're in side mount, and then are you catching them like with a choke with your legs? You're like push up on the neck.
Think about this. Like when Leandro Lowe had Crohn's back or whatever, he went from kind of stalling and being extra careful to like, I'm gonna attack you, extending myself, and so he's committing a lot more. He's committing his arms. He's committing his weight a lot more. So when Crone gets out in the middle of my escape, they're still committed, Now as I'm catching them, maybe going back to my guard or catching them, I've tapped people when they're on top of me in side mount, but putting them in that danger then. Because a guy's kind of hard to put in danger as a black belt when his guard's all up, But when he starts reaching for things and attacking, now he's more open. He's coming out of his guard. He's becoming more comfortable. So he starts to kind of let himself go. He starts to let his guard down, from side mount. Guys let their guard down when they have your back. And then when they have your back and they feel you getting away, in the process of them trying to keep it, because they don't want to go back through that guard passing and stuff again, you're catching them. They're leaving their limbs behind. They're leaving their neck open. So you catch them in the transition. Okay. But and a lot of my jiu-jitsu people, I grappled with a guy the other day, and he told me that like it felt like we were just always in the middle of the transitions. Like he felt like the whole grappling match was a transition. And
so like he couldn't secure a position? Is that what?
No, even when he was in those positions, he felt like he never really had them.
Okay.
So if it makes sense, like most guys don't operate inside the transition. They operate on the outsides. They operate on passing the guard and getting good at attacks from side mount. Not all that in between. And then there's a lot of in between that goes on. Honestly, most of jiu-jitsu is in between. And I don't know, like eventually the transitions feel no different than the positions to me. So again, some of that stuff is kind of hard to explain without feeling, but that was just a quote that I remember one of the guys saying. He came to visit. He was a blue belt from Orlando, and he had like won some Abu Dhabi competitions, some of the the gi competitions, and he was like, I've never grappled with, and he trains with a high level black belt. He was like, I've never trained. He's like, I've grappled with a lot of black belts in my time. This is a famous guy. I'm not going to say his name, but he said, I've trained with a lot of black belts, but I ain't never felt a black belt feel like you. And he said, that's what I want to feel like. And this guy was 42 years old. He said, that's what I want to feel like. And I was like, I appreciate that, man. And
Awesome.
when I went out and trained Wonder Boy for his second Woodley fight, his dad was real skeptical of jiu-jitsu to start with too, like as far as like, and I don't really have like a lot of credentials as far as some of the other guys that have come through there, Ryan Hall and some of these other guys, but they didn't like that style of jiu-jitsu because it was sort of competition based and like flexibility based, and it didn't really complement their striking a lot too. And karate's always worked for them, so they wanted the recipe for that. They wanted to learn how to get back up to their feet basically. And anyways, I could tell that Wonder Boy's dad was kind of like he was real skeptical about me being there, and he really didn't. He was like, what do you got to offer? And I was like, I really honestly couldn't explain it. I was like, y'all just have to feel it, wait till tomorrow or whatever. And then I roll with Wonder Boy, and he goes, Dad, you got to feel this. And like hollered across. And they loved everything that I did.
Awesome.
So much. And his dad was like real old school. He's like, I don't know what you're doing, but it's not jiu-jitsu. We're going to call it Daniel Kwando. So he kind of made fun of me the whole time, calling it Daniel Kwando, but he loved it, and I'm super grateful for that. But it just sort of like, I've been lucky enough to kind of like have those experiences with the higher level guys to where it just sort of reaffirmed that I felt like I was on the correct path,
Yeah.
And I I feel like that path is not just correct for me, though. I feel like it's correct for a lot of people. And I want to share that with people because I'm so passionate about it, you know. Maybe you can hear it by the way I talk, but it's just sort of like I'm truly passionate about that. And I want to share that with other people because I believe jiu-jitsu is down and like it's in a weird crossroads right now where it could kind of go either way, where people could start paying more attention to the art form, or it can turn more into a sport and be like, this dogfight looking thing. But I honestly don't think people don't tune into martial arts. People aren't going to want to watch jiu-jitsu, and it's not going to become as professionalized if people want to see if it's a dogfight. Because if I want to watch that, I'd rather watch the UFC. You know what I'm saying? Where people are actually punching each other and fighting like that, rather than like I want to see some old dudes schooling some young stud. That's what I want to see. I want to see some girl beating up a dude. Know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
That's what I want to see. I want to tune in and see that. I'll tune back in, That's what got people interested in jiu-jitsu in the first place.
Yeah.
Anyways, I hate to kind of cut this short, but I have to go. My mom, I got to meet her at a restaurant real quick.
Oh, yeah.
If you want to pick back up on a different day, that's fine.
Yeah, for sure.
But I got to go today. Sorry.
Yeah, no, I really appreciate you coming on, and you have an open invitation to come back on again, hear more about your story. I was actually looking at your so you said your website, and I was actually looking at it, so I was going to gather some more information about you before we started, and when I clicked on your website, it showed like you have this subscription for like $10 a month.
Yeah, it's only $10 a month, and like I said, there's not a website like it. Like as far as the jiu-jitsu the options that I offer, my style of jiu-jitsu is different, so that's the one little unique thing I can have. It's only $10 a month. You can get all these kind of crazy options. It's very defense and self-defense oriented. There's basic striking on there. Anybody can learn from it. There's self-defense. There's everything. The website has everything. It's only $10 a month. It's DanielO'BrienOnline.com. And, in the future, I'm going to offer discounts to the people that take my seminars and stuff when I'm traveling around, discounts for the seminars for people who are on the website. You can learn stuff from the videos on my websites. I know I said something about that earlier, that jiu-jitsu does need to be felt, though. It's an art that needs to be felt. Real jiu-jitsu needs to be felt. But I'm also that kind of guy too. I'm willing to take the Pepsi challenge with my jiu-jitsu against anybody's jiu-jitsu. And every time I took it, I know that my flavor is different, So it may appeal to my site would appeal to all people. The moves work for women, for competitors, for the elderly, for the flexible, for the non-flexible. So if you're interested in a site like that, come check it out. You won't be disappointed. There's over 100 new videos on there already, like videos that don't exist currently on my fan page. Follow my fan page and my Instagram. I do post videos on there. But my seminars go on the website, my classes, all that kind of stuff. So it's real good. And, I think it's really good for jiu-jitsu, and it'll give you a different avenue, a different angle to think about techniques maybe that you're already presented with. When you join the website, you're also able to join a private Facebook page that allows you to ask questions, and I'm there to help you guys out and answer your questions and videos and stuff like that. So it's a real good website. It's been going good so far. So
yeah, I was going to sign up for that. It sounded cool. You have a really cool style, and your philosophy makes sense to me, and it might be I think it'll be a really good complement to what I'm already doing. And so thanks for being on. I'll talk to you for just a second when I stop recording. But do you have any closing words for everyone before I stop recording?
No, just anybody that's listening to the podcast, you know, Jiu-Jitsu is a martial art. It's about expressing yourself, learning to be yourself, learning who yourself is, and learning how to use your body as an instrument to do those things. Anybody can do Jiu-Jitsu. You know, and I think Jiu-Jitsu is a journey in martial arts, but it's a journey also of self-discovery. You discover who you are. Martial arts is the avenue that helped me understand that. I feel like learning how to be good at fighting is a great way to learn who you really are, because it humbles yourself to the core. And, you know, if you do already train, check out my website. It'll complement the things that you already do. I'm not trying to replace your instructor or anything like that. I'm just giving you different looks, different things to work on. And, you know, I'm not here because I want to I want to make money or anything like that. That's not why I'm a martial artist. I'm a martial artist and I do jiu-jitsu. My goal now is to sort of improve people's view of jiu-jitsu, to you know, be a good ambassador for the art itself, for what I believe the art is, and to show and share that with people so they can continue to reap the benefits for it, so they can discover who they are, so they can, you know, learn to be themselves better. That's, you know, that's sort of my goal.
Yeah, I like it. Sounds good. Thanks again for being on. I'm going to stop the recording. I'll talk to you for just a second.
All right. Thanks, man.